The time is just gone 9:35 a.m. and we are now taking a look at Indians in South Africa celebrating 160 years in this country. And this morning we're joined by Amarlal Soma, who is the chairperson of the Pretoria Legacy Foundation. Amarlal, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the privilege.
Well, wonderful being here. And, 160 years later, Indians in South Africa. And clearly, there is a legacy. Indians have left their mark in South Africa, but one cannot forget 160 years later, or when one looks at the challenges that Indians had faced from the very first time that they had appeared on the shores of South Africa.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. Look, most Indian families can trace their ancestry back to the time when we came here as a humble, very simple, humble people. We came with very little clothes, well, with only the clothes that they wore, but they have progressed. They had a tremendous determination to succeed, not only for themselves, but for the generation that was to follow. And today we find that, like if we take, for instance, in the medical field, we have specialists in just about every category of medicine that is filled by a person of Indian descent. But again, I think in today's context, we must look at Indians not purely as Indians, but in a broader context. I mean, we embrace Pakistani, Sri Lankans, Bangladeshis, and again, people from North Africa. They also migrant communities, which shares common heritage with the Indian community. And we need to look at that in the broader context today.
Yes, but also I think at the same time, one needs to understand what this 160 years have actually meant for the Indian community. And, you touched just on the number of medical people, but just as far as preserving our heritage, preserving our culture, and that over the years has been a very, very strong point because culturally, the Indian culture has played a very, very important role in defining who we are. Although we have now become, Africans, we're part of the African continent, but that culture, that strong link with the culture, has played a very, very important role.
Yes, it is very, very important. I once heard Tokyo Sokpale talk about the Indian culture, and he linked that to the Dadima's closet. And he said, in that closet, we had everything that will sustain us. And for example, our religion, our culture, our upbringing, our courage. And that formed part and parcel of our makeup, of our heritage. And whenever there was problems, we invented satyagraha because of the problems we saved. Passive resistance came about, the political formations that took place within the country. That is part of our culture and our heritage and part of our upbringing. Things may have changed, but the basics still remain. Our problem still remains. We have new challenges today.
Well, exactly. And I think in addressing the challenges, obviously Indians have played a major role when one looks at the political figures and particularly those who have made tremendous strides towards democracy, towards the removal of apartheid. And Indians have been at the forefront of the struggle. But just looking at the challenges that we're faced with now, we know in the apartheid era, sometimes they say that we were not white enough. Now we're saying that sometimes we're not black enough. And at the end of the day, being a minority clearly has got certain challenges. The key issue for us is how do we respond to these challenges, Amarlal?
Yeah, obviously those are challenges. I mean, you can look at it from different dimensions. For example, in today's article by Moshmi Chetty, in one of the newspapers, she talks about white spaces. In South Africa, a stark example of race equal space, with pass laws that required us to carry passes to enter white areas and segregate all facilities. 20 years later, despite these removal and barriers to living, eating, and going to school everywhere, these racial spaces still use terms of applications to burst fireworks. in terms of mosques, for example, in certain spaces. We still think in terms of white spaces and black spaces. That white have certain privileges, certain conception about black people and about their habits. And if something that is not familiar to them, they'll view that as something that is alien to their religion, or we don't follow the same religious path and is looked at as inferior, sort of in a way. So those are the type of problems we face going forward. I mean, quota system, despite the need for doctors, Indian scholars are still prevented from entering medicine because the perception is that there are too many doctors in the country. Need for them.
Well, definitely. But also, I think
So
that when we look at,
challenge.
sorry, I think we just lost you there for a minute. You broke, you have been breaking up a bit. You can continue. Sorry about that. Sorry for the for butting in.
Sorry, I didn't get that question.
I said you just broke up, so I'm just a bit sorry that I had to basically cut you short while you were talking. But just when we're looking at Indians and when we look at the generations and how generations have evolved and the changes that we've seen amongst Indians in terms of the various generations, and we know now we're into that high tech generation. How do you see the Indian community and where we are at this point in time? And going forward, because South Africa, we know that at one stage, and I'm not too sure whether the numbers still hold true, outside of India, we have been the largest number of Indians outside India, and that is where our roots have come from.
I think Indian people are at the crossroads. While we have wealth, we have education, we have more other things, there are new conflicts arising within the Indian community. I think the welfare of the community, the poorest in the community remains a challenge. Our education system remains a challenge. Our environmental is challenged. So there are new challenges that the Indian community are facing. And if we don't get involved in those issues, then I think we can only go down. Despite our progress, despite our education, we need to be greatly involved, and we need to identify ourselves with the changing environment that is taking place currently.
Well, definitely, because I think one of the classic examples that one can talk about in terms of a changing environment is we know traditionally most Indians came from a trading background, and as a result of
Yeah.
the laws, the apartheid laws, the Group Arrest Act, this is what many of what I would say our forefathers have done. They were traders, they opened up businesses, and they continued trading. But all of that has changed. The business environment has changed. The economic environment has changed, and it's important that in all aspects, in every facet, that we take note and we take heed of a changing environment. But more importantly, in terms of doing something about it.
Yes, I mean the social responsibility. Yes, we are still trading. We are still wealthy. Um, everybody is not wealthy. I mean, the business environment is changing, and the conditions within the country, the global environment need to be of the fact that
Yes, I think
and we must.
we definitely are having a bit of a problem. We're going to see if we can't get Amarlal Soma on a better line because this is obviously possibly there could be signal issues on the other side. Amarlal, sorry, we have been losing you from time to time. If
I
you
think
could just
we're
continue,
breaking
please.
up. We are breaking up. I didn't follow your what you were saying.
No, we were
Because
just
the
talking
line was
about
cracking and you were breaking.
we were talking about the changing environment, and how we need to basically
Okay.
adjust to the changing environment.
Yeah. I think the Indian community need to be take cognizance of the change, and today different than what it was some years ago. But the state of our education, the crime rate, the drugs within our community, the lack of service delivery. Those are our concerns today. The poor and the needy within our community. So emphasis may have shifted. Even the environment within the business community is not the same. So we need to take cognizance of that. Like we fought to improve our political rights, this thing, we need to fight for to improve our conditions. And the community at large need to take responsibility for their own destination.
Hmm. I think just one aspect I'd like to actually touch on before we take leave of you, the concept of unity amongst the Indian community, because in the old apartheid era, we lived in traditionally Indian areas. We all attended the same schools. We had communities, we had societies, and there was a sense of unity, of purpose amongst the Indian community. How do you see that concept of unity today, particularly when one looks at the new generations?
Um, I think in the old days, things were more simpler. We were all Indians. Today, we are Pakistanis, we are from India, we're Sri Lankans, and we tend to get involved in that politics. It's not wrong to get involved in those political issues as well, because we need to take responsibility. But at the same time, these tends to divide us as well. So there are greater divisions depending on where you come from, or what religion you belong to, or what country of origin you are in. So these tend to divide us. But I think we as a community need to say that, look, we are bigger than all this problem that encounter, that we must still maintain our unity as South Africans. Although we need to address those issues within our own selves and within our smaller communities. But we as broader Indians must maintain that unity. I think it's vital.
Well, Amarlal, I want to say thank you very much for that and for your time with us this morning on Salam Media. It's been wonderful. It's been fascinating talking with you this morning. We wish you all the best and please be safe.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed speaking to you, and it was indeed a privilege. Thank you.
Amarlal Soma, Chairperson of the Pretoria Legacy Foundation, celebrating 160 years of Indians in South Africa.